Good afternoon. In this video, we're going to go over this week's watch list. Before we get into the watch list, if you're not in the room, you should be. You can find the link in the description of the video and the bio section of social media. We had a good month of May. If you don't already know, I finished 71 wins, 13 losses for an 84.52% win rate for the month of May. Hopefully June will be just as good, if not maybe better, because tomorrow is June 1st. So we'll have to see if we can beat those stats over May's. Looking at the economic calendar, obviously today's Monday, Memorial Day, so there's a short week this week. I do see Powell is speaking at 7 a.m. on Friday. It says panel discussion, central banks and climate change. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. So Friday morning at 7 a.m. before the market even opens. And we get OPEC too, so it could be a choppy week. It could be a boring week with no volume. So I wouldn't anticipate too much happening this week. It just is how it is on short weeks. So yeah, and even though the market's closed now, futures is open and it's kind of red right now. I think it's down like 7 points as of right now. Let me just double check. 8.75 points on ES futures. So with that said, I'll start with the I don't have much on the bearish side. I have a little bit on the bullish side. Now just remember that my thesis could change. The gap ups has been like really big gap ups and gap downs, and that could change my thesis and outlook. That's why you need to be in the room. That's why I post things in the morning, because a lot can change just on those gap ups alone. So you don't want to chase something that's already gapped up $4 or $5, especially on something like Facebook, because it's probably more than likely going to sell off at open. So those gap ups and gap downs are important. So with that said, I will start with ROKU. Now ROKU, I'm looking at this right here on the daily, the RCT trend line. It likes to reject it, and you got like a possible head and shoulders, left head, right shoulder, and it's rejecting right here on the daily. I can't get over it. So I'm looking at that if it can get underneath 343, it's probably going to push down to the 330 area, then down to 320. 320 would be a pretty big area. Then you get this 314, 315, 310. 300 would be a big psychological number. I don't know if I'll get that far, but we'll have to see. As you can see on the weekly, it is closed right above the middle Keltner channel, but we'll have to see if it will hold or not. But I'm really looking at this the most because let me blow it up. You can see it rejected here quite a bit, and it dropped. So it went from like 340 down to 300. So we could see this kind of a move. It could chop for a while, then just drop, or it could just take off. But that's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at under 343. So Target is another one. Now Target has just been going crazy. The reason I keep looking at this is just like BIDU or ROKU and some of the other ones that had a bearish divergence for a very long time that I called for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then they finally had their massive dump. I think that Target is going to be one of those ones like BIDU and ROKU that finally just was diverging for a long time. Then it finally just had its massive dump. I think that Target is going to be one of those ones. So I would watch it underneath. I even say Friday's lows of 225, 226 for push down to 224. Then you get this little area right here at 220. Let's say round up 222. Then you get 220, 217. 215 right in here. Then you get a little bit of a gap fill right here from earnings underneath 210 to 208. So I don't know if it will drop that much, but every time they diverge for a very, very long time, I mean, this just kept diverging right here just kept diverging. This is the kind of thing that Target is doing right now, what Roku did. Then it just finally had its cliff dive. So we'll have to see if that will do the same on Target. Now NVIDIA is another one. Now I know NVIDIA is kind of like in a channel here. I mean, you can draw the line right there and right here. So I mean, it could keep going to 660. I mean, technically, if you draw the line, probably goes to close to 660, but it is diverging right here. You see it, it's making a little bit of a higher high, and the RSI is making a lower high. It is diverging on the RSI, the histogram, the MACD, and when you see it diverging on multiple indicators and multiple timelines, like right here on the weekly too, it's doing the same thing, RSI, MACD, histogram. When you see it doing that on multiple indicators, multiple time frames, it's more or less going to end up playing out. The question is when. So I would watch NVIDIA underneath 640 for push down to 620, 621. Then you get this area gap fill right here at 600. Then you get 595. Then you get this area right here at 587, 580. Then you get a gap fill right here into below 570 to 563. So NVIDIA, I mean, it could keep going up because there's a shortage on there's a shortage on the semiconductor area, so and the chips. So this could benefit them. Could keep just being strong. I mean, we've seen so many times, just because it's diverging doesn't mean it's gonna play out. So it could take weeks for that. So we'll just keep an eye on that one too. Now the bullish side, Microsoft. Now the thing I like about Microsoft is that I keep watching this on the weekly. Every time it hits that middle Keltner channel, which is the 20 EMA, it bounces, and it just bounces off it like numerous times, and it bounced off it there too. So did make a little bit of an inverted hammer on the weekly, but we'll have to see if it can get out over 252. If it can get out over 252, it's probably going to make a run to 254. 256, you get gap resistance right there. Then you got 260 gap fill, and if it manages to get over 263, the all-time high, this thing is probably going to rip to 270. So definitely keep an eye out on Tesla, because it could Microsoft. It can make this kind of a move right here. So if the market conditions are favorable. DLTR, Dollar Tree. Now I keep looking at this at the weekly too. When it gets down to this, is it 97.5 right now? When it gets down to this 95 level, it likes to bounce hard. So yeah, I could keep going down to 95, but every time it does, ends up bouncing in here. It didn't here, then it finally rebounded, and it bounced here, and it bounced here. So I think that it's going to probably bounce. If it doesn't, we'll just keep an eye on it. I mean, worst case scenario, it can get down to the below 90 and get to the 86 area. So worst case 83. But I think that Dollar Tree is going to end up going back to all-time highs eventually. So it definitely could be a good long-term swing play. I would be watching it over... I would say 98 for push to 100, and 102, 104 is gap resistance. If it does break through gap resistance, it can make a strong move and close the gap to 108. So definitely watch Dollar Tree. Netflix is in the same channel, doing the same thing it's been doing for months and months and months. Hits this 480 and bounces. So I would watch it over, let's see, I would watch it over this candle right here, 507 for a push to a Friday's high of 511. Let's say 512 will round up. Then you get this area right here at 50. We'll say 515. If it does manage to break over this 517 area, it's probably going to end up filling the gap. So it's got a big gap to fill, and it's also have a inverted head and shoulders, left shoulder head, right shoulder right there. So it's got some possibilities if it can get up into this 515 area, and if it does, it could have a very, very strong move. So I would watch Netflix for that possible move. Now it's also possible that, you know, it could break this 480. If it does break this 480, this thing could end up dropping quite a bit down to probably let's say 450, and then you get this area 415, 400. So this kind of reminds me a little bit of Boeing. Boeing did the same thing, but Boeing had really bad news, obviously, because of the plane crash. But Boeing did the same thing. It just stayed in its channel right here. That this is where it had the that plane crash and issues with the MAX. So circumstances were different for Boeing, but it is that kind of look like Boeing had on the weekly, just chopping in this area. And if it does end up breaking, it could be a pretty significant drop. So like I said, that's why you need to be in the room. The gap ups, the gap downs, and news or other things that come into play throughout the week could change the thesis of the play in a hurry. So another one is QCOM. Now QCOM, it's getting into a little bit of resistance on the weekly. It's coming up on the 20 EMA and the RCT trend line. Now if it can break over that, I would definitely look at it over 135 for a push to 139, 140. Then you get this area right here, 143. I'm just rounding up to the next round number because support resistance is not an exact number, it's an area. 144, 145, then you get this area right here for gap resistance in the 151 area. So if it does make it to 151, it's likely going to stall out. So we'll have to see how that plays out on QCOM. Shack is another one. Shack has been running though. I mean, I like it. On the weekly, it did get over the RCT trend line on the weekly. So this is what I love about this thing. Every time it gets severely disconnected from the RCT trend line, like right here, it gets too far away, it comes back down. It gets too far away, it comes back up to retest it. It's a huge magnet. And it's right here on the daily. It's at that 110 area. So this is kind of looking like Netflix right here. But anyways, it did drop, it came back up. It did reject gap resistance right here. It could pull back, but usually if it consolidates right here in this area right below gap resistance, it could probably make a nice big move and fill the gap. So I would watch it over 96 for a push to 100, which is a big psychological number. Then a gap fill to 105 and even a push to 110. So I would definitely watch Shack. Tesla, speaking about Tesla. Now Tesla just it's on the weekly, it's diverging right here. You see, it's making a lower low, and on the histogram, it's making a higher low. So it's diverging, and it had a fairly decent move the last week. So it did manage to get above 600, which it doesn't like to stay below 600 very long. So we could end up seeing 700, 750, no problem this week if the market conditions are good and if Tesla doesn't have any bad news or whatever. So I would watch it over Friday's high of 635 for push to 640, push to 660, 680, and 690 and 700. So we definitely could see a push to 700. If it does manage to get over 700, it's probably going to end up pushing to 720, 750. It'll probably end up stalling out if it does manage to get that high. So we'll have to see what happens on Tesla. BABA. Now BABA is one I love shorting, but I keep looking at it. It's diverging so much on the weekly. He's making a lower low. Histogram keeps making a higher low. So it is diverging. Same with the RSI on multiple indicators. So I would definitely keep an eye on it over 215 for a push to 217, 220. There's a little bit of a gap fill right there, 220. Then you got this area right here, 225. Then you get 228, 229, 230. Then you get 235. So BABA is just one of those things that just can't get out of its way. It's kind of like Boeing. Anytime it gets a little bit of momentum, it just gets killed quickly because of either bad news or Jack Ma's missing or something with China is happening or something like that. And it just, whenever it starts to get momentum, it just stalls out or just gets crushed. So I think BABA is due for one of those big massive days like right here where it ends up going like 226 to, yeah, we could end up seeing like a 10 to 15 point move on BABA one of these days. I think we're going to end up seeing it soon. So definitely watch that. And speaking of other China stocks, BIDU, its partner, and BIDU has just been getting hammered. It's still, the RCT trend line is still down here at 155. It could still come down that, but I keep looking at it that it's starting to base right here at 186. So it did hold this 180 area. What is that? Yeah, did I see 196? Yeah, we'll say 180 right there, because you get the bottom of the wicks there. And but if it does manage to get over 200, probably a push to 220, 230, which is the RCT trend line on the weekly. Then you got this 250 area. It's a big psychological number. Now BIDU, it's just like BABA. It has a history of, you know, just making these strong 10, 15 point moves. So I think one of these weeks, I mean, not one of these weeks. Yeah, well, definitely one of these weeks. One of these days, this week, next week, that BABA and BIDU is going to have that 10 point plus move. We'll have to see which day it is and if we can catch it or not. But I think it's really going to have that big move. We'll have to see if market conditions are going to be there for it to do so. But yeah, so that's going to do it for the watch list. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Please like the video, and hope to see you in your room. Thanks for watching.